Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to again take this opportunity to thank the St. Louis Kollel and the Vadair for jointly sponsoring the Shiur. As we said last time, that this Shiur really, for the Vadair, is dedicated for the Mashgichim, and it's always amazing that they are able to come together and join with me, and we usually discuss topics of contemporary kashrus issues that are coming up. For Pesach, we branched out a little bit, and now we're going to discuss tonight. Last time we discussed the sugya of bittul and biur chametz, and tonight I'd like to focus primarily on the discussion of Mechiras chametz. We're all familiar with a pretty simple procedure from a consumer perspective. We go to the rabbi's office, we sign our name, we walk out, and all we know is that our chametz is sold. But we're going to try to go a little bit behind the scenes tonight and understand exactly how that's happening, how that's working, and get a little into the lumdus of what's going on. Really, a few years back, I gave a shiur entitled Mechiras Chametz, Is It Really Sold? And tonight is a takeoff of that shiur, plus hopefully a little more. And so it was refreshing. It was a refresher for me, and I hope you'll enjoy it as well. So I'll start with the shaila.
Still trying to find out if it's been sold.
Okay, still fine. Well, hopefully by tonight we'll have the answer. Let's see. So we're going to start in part number one. We'll start with the Shoel Umeshiv. He was posed the following question. It's an interesting question until he ends off the question saying, well, I know this really didn't happen, but I'll discuss it anyway. But here's the question that someone asked him, and then he said it wasn't a true case, but I think it was interesting nonetheless.
Who is this?
The Shoel Umeshiv was Rav Yosef Shol Nathanson. He was the Rav in Lemberg, Lvov, in the early 1800s. Tremendous author, prolific author, wrote thousands of tshuvas, and answered questions from all across Europe. And I'll just paraphrase the question, but I put it down here if you want to look at it inside. The question was as follows. He had a nice yid, we'll call him Ruvain, and he goes to the Rav, or sells his chametz before Pesach, does the whole transaction, no problem, everything is sold, and unfortunately during Chol Hamoed Pesach he passes away. Okay, and he sold, for argument's sake, $1 million worth of schnapps. He owned the schnapps, local schnapps company. He sells off $1 million worth of merchandise before Pesach. Chol Hamoed Pesach, he has a heart attack, and now he's no longer with us. He has two sons. We'll call them Shimon and Levi. Shimon is the Bechor, and Levi is the second son. So Shimon turns to Levi during Chol Hamoed. Now, keep in mind, there's no shiva or anything yet, right? They're during Chol Hamoed. But Shimon turns to Levi and says, I'm the Bechor, so after Pesach, I'm going to get double of what you get, right? So if you have $1 million, that's break into three parts. Even though the two sons, we break into three, and the Bechor is going to take 2/3, and the regular son will take 1/3. So Shimon tells his brother, I'm the Bechor. After Pesach, I'll get 2/3, you'll get 1/3. Isn't that great? I'm the Bechor. And Levi says, well, it could be you're the Bechor, but I know the halacha. And the halacha is that even though a Bechor takes double portion of the Yerusha, but that's only in things which were in liquid state, that's a pun intended, liquid state at the time of the death of the parent. The whiskey wasn't owned by our father at the time he died. When our father died, who owned the whiskey? The guy. It's only coming back into our rishus if the guy sells it back to us after chametz. That's called in halacha and gemara, it's called roi. Things that are coming later on. Things that are only coming later on down the line, the Bechor doesn't get pishnayim. For a modern day example, let's say someone bought a CD and it matures in 15 months. He passes away 1 month into the CD, so it's 14 months till the CD matures. At maturity date, the family comes, the inheritors, and they say they want to take the money that was in the CD. So even if there's a Bechor there, the Bechor, the firstborn son, will not get double his portion. He'll only get a single portion like the rest of the inheritors, because that's considered roi, because it wasn't accessible, it wasn't real liquid cash at the time of the father's death. So again, here you have the case where the guy sells his chametz before Pesach. He dies during Chol Hamoed. There's $1 million worth of chametz. After Pesach, the two brothers, the two sons, get it back. And the Bechor wants to take Pishnayim, wants to take his double portion. And the other son only says, no, you can't take the double portion because it was sold. We should split it 50-50. You get $500,000, I get $500,000. Doesn't want to end up with $1/3 wants to end up with $500,000. So they go to the Rav and they ask, what's the halacha? Was it considered out of our father's rishus? Which seemingly it should have been, because if it would have been his rishus, like we spoke about last time, that's Bal Yirah and Bal Yimatzeh, that's a pretty serious transgression. 2 lavim in the Torah, at least. It's Asa B'Hanam Midrabanan. Chametz Shalom Pesach, it wasn't sold, is Asa B'Hanam Midrabanan, we said last time, so what's the halacha? Okay. So before we get to the bottom line, let's first give a little backdrop and get to the understanding and the discussion of as we spoke about last week, just recap quickly, there are numerous isurim regarding chametz. Like we said, there's balira, balimatzeh. Those are the two big lavim of not having any chametz in our possession, which is accessible, and could be seen or could be found. There's tashbisu, that's the positive mitzvah to get rid of the chametz before Pesach. So automatically, usually by being over, by transgressing balira and balimatzeh, also transgressing tashbisu because you didn't get rid of your chametz properly. And then of course, it's the prohibitions of eating chametz or eating any mixture of chametz on Pesach, which that is punishable by kares. So chametz is very severe, as we know. And we spoke about last time the mitzvah min Torah to destroy the chametz, tashbisu, and the mitzvah midrabanan to search for all the chametz before Pesach. Now, as we all know, we all sell our chametz before Pesach as well. Selling chametz is not a mitzvah min Torah. It's not even a mitzvah from the Gemara. The Rabban never instituted that we all have to sell chametz. Nonetheless, we all are and should be makbet to sell our chametz. So how exactly did that develop? So the earliest source that the Pais can bring for the idea that of Jews selling their chametz in general before Pesach and getting it back after Pesach, meaning you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out you can just sell your chametz to a guy before Pesach and let him have it forever, right? That's no big kunz. The kunz is you want to sell it to the guy and have some type of option or possibility of getting it back from him after Pesach if he doesn't want it. So there is a Yerushalmi, which is part number 2 over here in the middle of the page, and Yerushalmi discusses an interesting case. Yisrael va'akum, there was a Jew and a Gentile, shayibayim b'sfin, they were traveling on a boat, they were at sea. V'chametz b'yad Yisrael, and Pesach comes, and the Jew has chametz in his possession. Now he's on the boat. They don't know, let's make up a little, put in some details here, they don't know when they're going to dock. They might be at sea for a couple of months. If he's going to just throw those chametz overboard, because he wants to destroy all of it, what's he going to eat for the next 2-3 months on the boat? He might not have any food. So what does he do with his chametz? Hareza moichel la'akum. He can sell it to the guy, says Yerushalmi, or give it to the guy as a gift. And he can come back after Pesach, knock on the guy's door in his cabin, and say, I want to buy it back. Ubilvad, but this is as long as you have to give it to the guy as a full-fledged gift. This is no wink of the eye over here, or here's a gift, I'll see you in a week. None of that, insinuating anything like that. If you give it to him as a full-fledged gift, it has to be a real gift, no backsies. Or if you sell it to him, it has to be a fully valid sale. Then the Yerushalmi has another case of they're not on a boat. If a Jew sees a guy walking, let's say, going down to the grocery store, he's about to go buy a box of Cheerios, says, don't buy a box of Cheerios. I have 2 boxes at home. Why don't you buy my boxes from me? And I'll give you a good deal, or come buy it from a Jew, because maybe the Jew tells the guy, maybe after Pesach I'll need this Cheerios and I'll buy it back from you. So I'm selling it to you now full-heartedly, but I have 2 boxes of Cheerios at home. Why don't you buy them? Because maybe after Pesach I'll buy back from you. Again, it's an interesting case, but the idea we're seeing from here is that the guy and the Yid are having this transaction before Pesach, the Yid is selling it or giving it b'matana to a guy before Pesach, and he's already insinuating some type of understanding that I might want to come get it back from me after Pesach. But it's not a condition. The Yerushalmi says clearly, as long as he's giving it to him for a full-fledged gift, or he's selling it full-heartedly, but nonetheless, there could be some idea that I might want to come get it back from you. You could already plant the seeds that I might want to get this back after Pesach. So this is from the Yerushalmi. The Ritva, who quotes this Yerushalmi in Pesachim, beginning part of Ritva basically just quotes the Yerushalmi and the Tosefta, where it's the same idea. Where I started underlining it about a little more than halfway down, the Ritva adds a very important caveat. He adds a little ending over here. He says, Ubulvad shelo yarim. You can't do any trickery. You want to do this sale with the guy, it's legal. You can give it to him as a gift, you can give it to him, but don't do any tricks. Aval, he says, imherim, if the Jew does some type of trick with the guy, vurag lasis came b'chol hashanim, and what that means is, says Ritva, is that every year, Erev Pesach, Ruvain knocks on his neighbor's door and says, my good Goyish neighbor, please buy my chametz for me. Okay, I'll see you in a week. And this goes on year after year after year. Sounds familiar? Right? I think we all heard of this concept. Says Ritva, that's illegal procedure. If your Rog Alasis came b'chol Hashem limka l'goy kadra Pesach v'lito la'achar Pesach, and to rebuy it after Pesach, kansina lei, says the Ritva, will give you a fine, will knas you, v'u asur loy, the chametz becomes asur to you, u'l'kol yisrael la'achar Pesach. The Ritva takes his license here and says, not only did Chazal say that chametz she'avol av Pesach, chametz which passed over Pesach and the Jews' rishus becomes asur after Pesach at the Rabban, like we said last time. Now, even if a Jew sells it to a guy, But he tells the guy, this is what he does year after year after year, keeps buying it back from the guy, so it's kind of an unspoken stipulation. This is what's going to happen according to the mitzvah. That's illegal, and it should not be repeated. And if he does it, then we will give you a fine, and you will not be able to enjoy that chametz after Pesach, even if you buy it back. So again, let's say for 10 years or 2 years you did this shtick already, you sold your chametz to a guy, a full-fledged sale, and then, let's say for argument's sake, the third year you do it again, even though you bought it back, you transacted, you had money back and forth, according to the Ritva, at that point, even though you bought the chametz back, it's usur. So you lost your money and you lost your food. Alright, bad deal according to the Ritva. Now, this is obviously not the what we're all familiar with, and the reason for that is because the Beis Yosef on the top of the next page, Beis Yosef on the tour quotes the Rabbeinu Yerucham, a Rishon, and he says, I'm just reading from the top before it's online, Rabbeinu Yerucham, the last word in the first line, it says, Rabbeinu Yerucham Kosav al Tosefta Zu, and this Tosefta, which we also says Yerushalmi, B'Shem Bahag. So Rabbeinu Yerucham brings the name of Baal Halachos Gedolos from the earliest Rishonim. U'B'Levad Shelo Yarim. He also has this term that the Ritva said, you should also not make a trick, but it's important here to see how he explained it. The Ritva again learned the trick that it means that you shouldn't keep doing it year after year, because then it shows that you don't really, it's not a real sale. The Beis Yosef says in the name of the Rabbeinu Yerucham, Ve'enai mevin devarav. I don't understand what that means. Hashari litnoi la'akom b'matana. I'm allowed to give it to a guy as a gift. V'lachzor v'lulkoi achar Pesach, and to go back and get it back after a Pesach. Ve'en l'cha arama gedolah mizu. There's no greater trick to that. Meaning, of course, I know it's a trick, but it's legal. If it's legal, it's legal. It's a legal loophole. So says the Rabbeinu Yerucham, what's the problem? It's out of my possession. Where is it? It's in my Goyish neighbor's garage. It's out of my house. This is an important idea. He's saying here, it's not in my house at all. Where's the chametz? Not under my kitchen cabinet somewhere. It's in the guy's garage. It's in the guy's rishus. So says the Rabbeinu Yerucham, it's mutter. The efshar, so suggests Rabbeinu Yerucham at the end, the shelo yarim to come when it says you should not make any tricks. What does that mean? Hainu loymer, that means to say shelo yimkor loy v'lo yitin loy al tanai. Don't sell it to him and make a stipulation, or give it to him as a present, and give him a specific stipulation that I will buy back from you. Don't worry, if you don't want it, I will for sure buy it back to you. Or, if you don't want it, you can for sure give it back to me. Don't put any stipulations in the contract. Sell it wholeheartedly, and if the guy self-understands, or he just decides by his own to sell it back to you, even if you do this every single year, as long as there's no spoken out condition, no tenai, then according to Rabbeinu Yerucham, it's going to be permissible, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. So that's an introduction so far to how what we call our regular sale that we do. We'll get to more details of it as we go along. But the idea is that this really a machlekes rishonim. According to the Ritva, if you do it year after year, it's not going to be smiled on. It's going to be frowned upon because it looks like a harama, looks like a trick. And according to Rabbeinu Yerucham, it's not a problem because we're giving it to the guy's rishus. Once it's out of the Jews' rishus, and once it enters the guy's rishus, that's not a problem. The only thing the Rabbeinu Yerucham adds that we can't make a stipulation. You can't say specifically when you're selling the guy the chametz or giving the guy the chametz that you're doing it al tanai. Okay, so what we've seen till now, it seems like there's halachic precedence for this idea of a sale, even though again we said the Gemara never says we should do it. And even the poskim are discussing it here, not saying this is something that we should do, but this is something that you could do if you have chametz, you need to be sold. You can sell it off before Pesach, and again, as the Shulchan Aruch is passing, you can sell it to the guy or give it to the guy, but matana, as long as you don't make a stipulation in the contract. Now, it's interesting, Rav Zevin Zatzal in the Sefer Hamoedim B'Halacha writes, he says, if you want to see an interesting development of history throughout the Tshuvas Svarim, he says you'll see, if you look in the earlier Tshuvas Svarim, many of the shilas that the Rabbanim had are people who had private transactions. There were people who sold privately. Every Jew on his own accord went to his Goyish neighbor and sold his chametz if he wanted to. There was no communal rabbinic sale going on. I have $100 of chametz in my house. I knock on my neighbor's door. The guy, Mr. Akum, and please buy my chametz for me. Or I give him a box of food. Here it is, Mr. Akum, take my food, have a good day, and I kind of come back a week later. It seems like it was a private affair, so to speak. However, as the generations went on, you see in the Tshuvas Svarim, he writes, that it became more of a rabbinic duty that the Rabbanim took care of it. And that has many milas, many benefits for the Rabbanim to take care of it. For us, as we'll soon see, there are numerous nuances of the kinyanim, or how the contract is worded, that a rabbi will hopefully be well versed in, and that he'll do the contract without any shadow of a doubt in halacha, and he'll cover all bases. But since it's interesting, once this became the minig that the Rabbanim do it for us, there's another minig that developed. The minig is that when a person goes to the Rav for that the Rav should arrange a sale of the Chametz. It's important to point out the Rav is not buying your Chametz, right? As we always say, the Rav is just being now the agent to sell your Chametz. The minig has become that when you go to the Rav, you give him a couple of dollars or more than a couple of dollars. You give him a present for Yantif for helping you sell the Chametz. Now, some people think it's just a nice idea. It's nice to give the Rav a couple extra dollars before Yantif. It's great. It's a nice way to show your appreciation. Maybe you bother him many times during the year. Give him a couple extra dollars before Pesach. But Moshe Sternberg Shlita writes, this is much more than a minig. It's become a chayiv. It should be an obligation for every person to give the Rav. Now, I don't sell chametz, so it's not a personal appeal. But whoever your personal shul Rav is, says Moshe Sternberg, there should be an idea to give him specifically money when you ask him to help you arrange the sale of chametz. Why? So Moshe Sternberg explains as follows. This is the bottom of page 2 in part number 3. Moshe Sternberg says as follows. He says, first he says, it seems like it's just a nice minig, like I told you. And then he says, where I underlined it, it's not just charity. You must give something to the Rav. To give him some money, that which he's selling it for you. Why? The reason for this is as follows, he says. I'm reading where it's underlined in the right column. MS Kasha, it's hard to understand. Heich Mahani, how does it help that we told the Rav to sell the chametz for us? We tell the Rav, make him a shliach, we point him our agent, tell him to sell the chametz. Let's just pause for a minute. We have a principle throughout Shas, chazaka, we have an assumption we're allowed to trust that if I send someone on a shlichus to do a job for me, I can assume he carried out that job. Chazaka, we have a principle that a shliach oiser shlichusay. Without getting involved in all the rayas, or Moshe Sternberg is suggesting here, that only works for things which need to happen a derabanan. Things which need a chalois, which is going to happen derabanan, there we have a chazaka shliach oiser shlichusay. If it's a shayla of a da'araisa, to make sure to know that a da'araisa happened, then I need to verify the shliach did his job. I can't rely on the presumption that the shliach will do his shlichus. So now what do we have here? I own $100 worth of chametz. If I'm going to own it going into Pesach, I'm going to transgress a da'araisa. I'm going to transgress at least 2 isur abayi matzeh. So I need to know on a da'araisa level to make sure that the Rav sold the chametz for me. Now, so one option is, I'll go to him this week, a week before Pesach, ask him to be my shliach, and then Erev Pesach, 10 o'clock in the morning, the most convenient time, I'll call the Rav and say, Rav, are you sure you sold my chametz? Did you sell all my chametz? Did you do a good job? He'll say, yes, I sold your chametz. Hang up the phone. Then the next guy will call him. And from 10 o'clock till Lichtin, the Rav will be answering the phone all day, non-stop, telling everybody, yes, I sold the chametz, because everyone needs to check to make sure that the Rav did his shlichus. So how do we help the Rav not be busy all day picking up the phone and answering the same question over and over again? Says on Moshe Sternberg, I'm just skipping to the left paragraph really, but it's underlined. We're on the second part of the underline over there. After the break, it says, Avol, he says, if you're careful to give the Rav money, Dafka, Eino Shliach, he's not your Shliach, but Amarak Havikipoil. Then he becomes your worker. And again, you go through the rayas there are, if someone is your worker and you hired him to do a specific job for you, then you don't have to check, even on the rice level if he did it, you're paying him to do the job. When you pay someone to do the job, of course he's doing it, otherwise he's a ganef, so to speak, right? So when you give the Rav the money, you're not just giving him a nice tzedakah, a nice nedava, but says you're now hiring him to be your agent, not just a shliach, but a pile, and therefore we don't have to call back the Rav on Erev Pesach and bother him and say, you sure you sold my chametz? We can trust that he did. Now we trust him anyway, technically, but from a halachic standpoint, we want to ensure that it was done properly. So that's why Moshe Sternberg promotes the idea of giving the Rav money before Pesach to ensure he becomes now your pile and not just your shliach.
So if you did bittul, then it ends up being rabbanon.
Well, if you did, but often we don't want to move out to the chametz we're selling, because if you do bittul on the chametz you're selling, technically means that it's after the ara. It's an interesting shaila. I don't want to discuss it right now. If let's say I didn't sell chametz, I just said bittul, and I knew I had chametz, right? And I was mevatel it. Is there still a kenas there of chametz of a pesach or not? Meaning, I knew there's a dozen bagels in my freezer. right? I put
I found them.
What?
I
found them. I know those, so I say, okay, I'm not going to sell those to the guy. I don't have time to arrange it with the rabbi. I'm not interested in selling my chametz to the rabbi. I'll say kol chamira. So it's not so pasha that after Pesach I can just go ahead and enjoy this, even though he said kol chamira. Don't get me wrong, you got to say kol chamira, but not automatically is everything just mutter. So that's why we're going to promote everyone should sell their chametz. Okay, but let's just. So at this point, Moshe Sharbach is saying that now that it became the minute, the Rav is selling it to us, you have to make sure to pay him for his dues. Now, this he doesn't talk about, but I was thinking in my, I was preparing this. Now, if a Rav has a contract from the shul, and if in the contract of the shul, part of his duties are to arrange the sale of chametz for all the members of his congregation, and you're a paying member to his congregation, then l'chayra you should be covered and wouldn't have to pay him, especially for selling your chametz. But you have to know what the rabbi's contract says. So consult your local board and see what they write in the shul contract. But either way, it's a good idea. Okay, that's what Moshe Sternbach did. Let's move on. There's other ideas that the place we speak about, which they do here in St. Louis, which is not just that we go to one Rav, let's say you go to our Gimla, you go to our land, you go to our Shulman, you sell your chametz, whoever it is, right? But the Rabbanim get together and they form a bezdin, and they, together as a bezdin, they sell their chametz to the guy. There are numerous milas to that. One of the milas is the Yeshua Smalka of Shula Kutno speaks out in the Tshuva that therefore once they have a kayach of a bezdin, they also have the kayach to declare hefker bezdin hefker. As we'll soon see, they're going to do between 5 or 6 kinyanim to make sure that this sale is valid, to cover every single possible problem that might exist in any one of the kinyanim. There's machlekes about each one of the kinyanim, so they'll also do at the end, if you have a bezdin, they'll pronounce hefker bezdin hefker, meaning in case anything we said, any one of the transactions we tried to do didn't work, our last resort will be hefker bezdin hefker. So you can only do that if you have the power of a bezdin. So if you have all the rabbanim, or at least 3 rabbanim coming together and they're working as the bezdin, then they can do that as well. Because when we go to the Rav and appoint him as our shliach or payil, we're telling him, you do whatever you need to do to make sure that this belongs to the guy. We don't care what type of kinyan you use. We don't care what type of method, halachic, lumdis he uses to get rid of the chametz. We just want him to have the power of attorney to do whatever he needs. Rav Moshe in the Tshuva explains another reason why we want a bezdin to sell a chametz is because there's a problem that the guy often doesn't really know exactly what he's buying. Now, often there's hundreds of contracts, or at least there's tens, if not hundreds, maybe thousands, depending on Rabbanim doing it together. You can have lots of details going on. Now, he's not going to sit there and start evaluating each and every contract to see how much everybody is selling and what everyone's worth. But without going into all the details, Allah is in Choshe Mishpat, when you have a bezdin or 3 people together selling something, so even if the person doesn't know fully what he's buying, he's confident that since there's an enterprise, there's a body of at least 3 or more people selling him this, that they have some way of properly figuring out how much chametz there is. Doesn't mean that the Rav even knows how much chametz he's selling, but since it's not just working as an individual, but it's working as more of an enterprise, more of a corporation selling the chametz, so he's confident that the corporation selling him all this chametz, now the bezdin, so to speak, will have the ability to figure out or hire a person who's able to figure out how to properly evaluate the chametz. That's just a maila, it's a chumrah to do it as a group of rabbanim as opposed to doing it as an individual rav, which is what they do here. They do it as a group. Okay, let's cover now quickly many of the kinyanim that the Mishnah Berurah writes. That's on source 4, part 4, on page number 3. What we should do, how the rav should sell the chametz to a guy. Now, keep in mind, again, we as an average consumer never see this. The rav, though, I've witnessed to a couple of different rabbanim selling chametz. They do almost all this. Some do even more. We'll speak out. And this you'll see why it's much easier for the rabbi to do it than for each individual to do it, because it's just a lot of details. Okay. So this is the Mishnah Berurah. I paraphrase a lot of it. It's not everything. The Mishnah Berurah even writes even more than this. But these are the main points of the Mishnah Berurah in Hilchos Pesach. He says as follows. It's a machlekes. We're all familiar throughout Shas. It's all different types of kinyanim. We have hagbah. We lift things. We do beshicha. We do chalipin. We do kinyan agav. We do kinyan kesef. All these words are all over Shas. Now, although these are all different types of kinyanim, what becomes even more complicated is that each one has a machlekes of if and how it can be done between a yid and a yid only, or between a yid and a guy, or maybe it can only be done between a guy and a guy. All different shaylas and machlekes in. We're going to try just to sum it up and get the brief version, and we can discuss maybe at more length a different time. Like this. The Gemara discusses, in Mishnah and Kedushin discusses that metaltalin, any movable item, meaning not something which is the ground, the karka, that requires a physical action to transfer possession. So you need either meshicha to pull it, or you need hagbah to lift it up. Money, just giving money, according to the Mishnah and Kedushin, does not suffice. It's not good enough for metaltal. That's ma'is enim kainis. Doesn't just work by itself. However, the Gemara has a machlokes if this is the same halacha for a yid to a guy, or this halacha only applies for a yid to a yid, like I mentioned before. According to Rabbi Yechanan, the proper method of the transaction between a yid and a guy is a physical transfer of an item, like mashicha or hagbah, depending what it is. Reish Lakish holds that no, even over here, for a yid to a guy, you could use just money. Even though for a yid you can't, but for a guy you could, and reasons why we're not going to discuss it right now. And Machlokes Rishonim had a pask in this. So again, we have a Machlokes in the Gemara if you have a transaction between a yid and a guy, if you need to do mashicha or hagbah and metaltlin, or money suffices. So what are we selling to the guy? We're selling him chametz, to metaltlins, movable items. How is the guy supposed to go ahead and pick up or pull all this chametz? It's a lot of work, right? Okay, so first of all, the first thing we're going to do is kinyan kesef. Because since it's a machlokes, if a guy can do kesef or not, the first kinyan, the easiest one, is the guy will give money to the Rav. Now, how much money does he have to give? That's a good question. The Rav, let's say, will say, I have approximately $1 million worth of chametz. Now, most goyim who are buying chametz don't really have $1 million to their name, which is another shah we'll get to. Even if they do, they're not coming with $1 million cash in a suitcase to give to the Rav. So they give a down payment, $5, $20, whatever it is, and they say, I'm buying, we agree now, you're going to sell me everything. There's no tonight, there's no stipulation. I'm giving you all this, the money now, I'm giving you $20 to buy the chametz now, and the rest of the money I owe you, which is, whatever was $1 million, what's $1 million minus 20, right? Forgot the math, 900,000, etc. 999, fine, right? All the rest of it, I'm having myself, I'm being mechayev myself, I'm obligating myself in a loan that I have 8 days to pay back, or 9 days to pay back that loan. If I don't pay back that loan, then I'm be forced to sell it back to you for this money. But not that retroactive sale never happened, because that would be disastrous. We don't want the retroactive sale never to happen. We want the sale to be 100% valid. So we call it Zoykiv Love Milva. He accepts the rest of it upon himself as a loan. It's like taking like a mortgage, right? When you go and you buy a house, you give a down payment, and the rest of it you own. Who owns the house now? Well, you own the house. The bank owns the house. So okay, it's still technical. I don't know exactly compared to a mortgage, but the idea, in theory, that idea that you own, the guy will own the chametz completely, and he has X amount of time to pay it out. So that's the first thing I put in bold in the Mishnah Berurah. Yesh Misha Omer, says the Mishnah Berurah, the kinyan shel akum hu bekesef dafka has to be specifically with cash. V'yesh Omer she'ein akum kaina el b'mashicha the rishus yol akba. He has to do something physical. So in the older days, so to speak, before the Rabbanim did it for us, that was easy. You just went to the guy with your box, gave the box of chametz to the guy could take it into his house and pick it up and push it and do whatever he wanted with it. But nowadays, obviously, that's not really going to be an option, so we're going to have to figure out another way how to do it. V'yesh shekasvu, in the third line over here, the gam shari kinyan no hagim malkum. Any kinyan that we discussed in the Gemara could work with a guy. Kigayin, kiniyas metalton agav karka, a kinyan agav. What that is, which when the Rabbanim do that as well, is that they sell the chametz to a guy, now even though it's metaltalin, but they do it agav karka. That's why in the shtar it says that with the sale, the guy is buying part of our house. He's buying the cabinet which has the chametz in it. He's not just buying the chametz, he's buying the physical cabinet which has the chametz. He's buying the pantry. He's buying wherever the chametz might be, the freezer that has the chametz. He's not just, therefore, when you buy something which is ground-based, like a cabinet, which is installed in the ground, or a fridge and freezer, even though it's not installed, that's considered to be like the karka, it's heavy in the house. So he's buying that spot, that karka as well. So when you have a kinyan on karka, agav the karka, you can also get metaltalin. Although we said before, in order to be kind of metaltalin, you have to do a physical act. But you're doing it agav the karka, so that works. Or kinyan chatz or kinyan chalipin, you could do the chalipin, the exchange as well with the handkerchief with the guy. And then the Mishnah Berurah says, where it's bold again, about halfway down, there are those poskim who say these kinyan are not good. Even though he read the kinyan kesef, potentially a Mashicha, and you did a kinyan agav, and you did a kinyan chalipin, that's at least already 3 or 4 kinyame you did already, but some poskim, again, the Mishnah is writing just bekitzer, say these are not good, because maybe they only help for a Jew, and therefore Mishnah says, l'inyan dina, how do we paskin? L'chatchila bevadai tzarech lahaknis bekinyan gomer, or muskim l'kuli alma, tahainu, you have to do the best kinyan which we could, bekesef ubu Mashicha biyachad. Mishnah says, you got to do kesef and Mashicha. So that's not going to help us, because again, if the Rav's doing it for us, the Rav selling everybody in the whole town's chametz, how can the guy can't do mashicha on everybody's chametz? If it's just a single sale, you could do it. Mishmur says, but it's good, but then go down, skip down to the next paragraph, and Mishmur says there as follows, Mikol Makom, where it's bolded in the second paragraph, Ima Chametz Meruba, there's an abundance of Chametz. The Efsha Limshach HaChametz Kun, the guy cannot pull all the Chametz, V'chein and Eina Chametz Kan Shiach Lakam L'Mashcha, or the Rav's in his office, or he's selling it, the Chametz from the guy in his house. So the Rav doesn't have any of the chametz there anyway. Elahu be'ir acheres, a different city, or b'derech yesh leila haknais lenachu b'shar kinyanim. Then you should use in other kinyanim, and then he writes, oh yeah, I wrote, bolded again, I did kiyas kaf, which they do, which is like a handshake. Since that's an accepted form of an agreement in Chayshah Mishpat, or in the business, when you do a transaction with somebody, you want to sign on a deal, you give a formal handshake, that has legal binding power. Or if you're in the diamond business, what do you say? Mazel bracha. That's a legal term that even amongst goyim, if you say that, it has a legal status. So any kinyan, which is an accepted way, a form of transferring ownership in a business practice, will do that. You clap hands together. Mishmur says later where it's bolded. Okay, that's considered a kinyan. Okay, so let's sum up. We discussed very quickly a bunch of kinyanim. This is what the Rabbanim do l'maisa. They sell the chametz to the guy with kesef. The guy gives money. They write up a shtar. It's a kinyan shtar. The Mishnah wouldn't discuss it here. He writes it. It could be I just didn't read it. I didn't bold it up, but it's there somewhere. Shtar. They do chalipin. They do kinyan agav. They do tkiyas kaf. Those are 5 kinyanim that they all do. That the Mishnah passes all Rabbanim should do. As far as I know, that's universally accepted. Rabbi Greenblatt told me, and I saw Rabbi Shlomo Zalman did this as well in Eretz Yisrael. They also do another kinyan called kinyan idisa, which is an interesting kinyan. That's a kinyan which also works. It's better. There's a bezdin that does it. That they get up and they tell the guy, the chametz that we have, buy this over now because we are appointed agents, is now yours. Meaning, a kinyan usually is that I'm taking this something physical. I'm taking this pen and I'm giving it to you. You're doing mashiach on it, or doing hagbah, whatever you're doing on it. Disa kinyan, Taisus talks about this in a couple places, and there's all types of law. This is how it works. I have the ability to say this pen now belongs to Hirsch Chaim. Now, how'd that work? That's a lumdis. That's a concise. Discuss how that works. That's called a kinyan idisa. And if I just put it down in front of him and I say this pen, everyone knows this pen was mine a minute ago, and I say this pen hereby now belongs to Hirsch Chaim. As long as it's a schus for him, if it's a chay for him, then obviously I can't force it upon him. But if it's a schus for him, that's called a kinyan idisa. That's a 6th kinyan they do as well. And then they declare hefker bezdin hefker. So that's a 7th way that the bezdin has, or the rabbanim together have got rid of our chametz. Now, we mentioned briefly before, there's a slight issue with this, because we sold, let's say, $1 million worth of chametz to the guy. And the guy doesn't have $1 million to his name. So, I didn't put it in here, but there are many places, Shulchan Aruch Harav and others, who discuss the idea of getting an Arev Kablan, getting a guarantor on the loan that can guarantee that the money will be available. This could be a yid. You can take someone in town who either has money available or has the ability to get a loan for that amount of money. You don't have to actually have $1 million cash. You can just have the ability to get a loan, and you will sign as an Arev, as a guarantor on the loan. So you have your local Akum, your local guy who can't get a loan for more than $500, and he's going to buy your chametz worth $1 million. How's that going to work? So he gives his $5 as his down payment, or $20, whatever it is, and then you have someone who has the ability, the yichaylis, to get that money if the guy decides to buy it. He's guaranteeing that he will supply the money for the guy if the guy decides to buy the chametz. Now, that's also, I wouldn't say it's the best, wisest investment necessarily if the guy can't get a loan for more than $500. But that's the idea that you can, that Arev, again, that could be a yid. There's nothing to do with that. You don't need a guy for that. As long as the guy is buying the chametz, then you should get a guarantor. And I'm pretty sure they do that here as well, because Rabbi Lando, who's involved in the selling of the chametz, I think he's makbid on that. Many chassidim are makbid on that. Okay, so now...
So it's not the whole bezdin that goes to sell it to the guy. It's somebody who represents the bezdin?
Somebody, one more time.
He represents the bezdin when he comes to sell chametz?
Well, the Rabbanim are doing it as a bezdin. So you have Greenblatt, Rabbi Lander, Rabbi Shulman also.
The whole bezdin meets with
the guy, yeah. And they're working as a team, selling it, each one is selling their chametz together to the guy. With the power of bezdin. Now, if we would stop right here, so it sounds like...
3 separate transactions. Each Rav...
I don't know how they might all group it together. I'm not sure exactly at the end of the day how they do it. If they say we're doing it all at once, we're going to do each congregation separately, I'm not sure. What?
We're going Wednesday night together.
Right.
Sit together.
They put all the stars together? So they make it one, they don't do 3 separate ones. Okay, fine, okay, good. Different,
one transaction.
Right, one transaction. Okay, good. If we would stop right now, it would seem like the Mechiras Chametz is 100% valid. The Shulchan Aruch says you can do it. Mishmur speaks about all the different kinyanim. You do all the kinyanim, it's valid, and then we can live happily ever after. However, that would be only telling you half the story. Many Paiskim, and leading them are the Bachar Shar. I didn't quote it down here, but I'll just speak it out. There's the Bachar Shar, who's from the Gedali Achronim on the Gemara Pesachim, and he raises many issues with this sale the way we do it today. The main primary issue he has, although he doesn't quote the Ritva that we said earlier, but the primary issue he raises is that the whole thing looks like a harama. If we're doing this year after year, it looks like a joke, it looks like a trick. What are we doing? Every year we get the same guy. There's a video online you could watch of Rabbi Willig from YU, the Rav in Riverdale. He has a whole video of him selling the chametz to the guy, and he gives a whole introduction. He's been doing it with the same guy for like 45 years, something like that. A tremendous, over 40 years doing it with the guy. So it's very nice. It's good. He has a good relationship. But according to the Ritva and according to the Bachar Shar, that for sure looks like a harama, looks like a trick, because the guy knows he's been doing this for 40 plus years. He's all proud of it. He's smiling for all the pictures. This is what he does every year to help out the Jewish community. It's very nice, and he gets some business from it. He's a real estate agent, so afterwards he gets some business. It's a whole. But according to many Paiskim, that would seemingly be a problem of harama. Now, I'm not questioning that sale is 100% fully valid. Or Willig is a very, very chashuv rav, and that's 100% fully valid sale. I'm just saying, according to these Paiskim, you can understand why it's a question. And therefore the Bachar Shar and many people, the Achronim who go with him, say there will be a serious problem selling it. He's actually discussing an interesting case where in his day, 200, 300 years ago, many Jews had many livestock, they had many animals in their possession. And the animals, that wasn't just one cat or one dog or two cats, whatever it was. There was a whole flock of sheep or cows. And whatever they needed to eat, some of them needed to eat chametz products. And if they would be off their grain products for a week, they would really have a hard time. They wouldn't be producing what they needed to produce, and it would be the farmers had a very difficult time. So many farmers were stuck, and they would sell their animals with enough food for 8 days to a guy. And that was what the Paiskim really were bothered with in that day. That looks very not kosher. That here I'm selling you my cow, and I'm selling you enough food for 8 days, and I'll see you in a week. Again, like we said before, you have to be very careful not to put in stipulations and add any conditions into the sale, because that would give it a chashash of a haram, or maybe even invalidate the whole sale. However, we're going to now focus on the Paiskim that promote the sale. And it's an interesting question here, and the Chassam Sofer discussed this in his tshuva, and I think this is a question we can relate to, is that there was not exactly these details, but that the concept is that in the days of Baruch Frankel, who was a little bit before the Chassam Sofer, he had a shaila as follows. There was a malshin in town, someone who was a Jew, but unfortunately was constantly telling the government on his fellow brethren, wasn't anybody's friend, and he goes to the governor before Pesach and says, let me tell you what the Jews are doing. The Jews are selling tons and tons and tons of chametz, 1 million ruble worth of chametz, and no one's paying sales tax. You see what's going on over here? The Jews are out to get you. They're all evading taxes, tax evasion 101. They're selling $1 million worth of chametz, and no one's paying sales tax. So the governor says, I got to look into this. He looks into it and says, no big deal. A couple days later, he says, who cares? The whole thing is just a religious charade, has no validity anyway. What's the difference? I'll let the Jews go this time. I'm not going to bother the Jews. So now, okay, the Jews, everyone can, sigh of relief, right? We don't have to pay tax. But now everyone's nervous. So was the sale valid or not? If the governor is saying that the sale is just a religious thing, it's just a charade, so that would seem to imply that the sale has no validity halachically. If it's not a valid sale, then how can we be confident that the guy owns the chametz? Because even the government is saying we don't care about it. So Chassam Sofer says, don't worry, calm down, everything is kosher. Why? And that's in the second paragraph here. He says, Ulavavi loy nidam. I'm not so concerned. My heart is not so worried about this. Ki ashtar kosher. The shtar is valid. Hein bedin Yisrael in Jewish court in Bahagal Haitzi Mechad beDegalim Arehu Shaloi Hein bedin Isav Heter. Whether any court, as long as the contract is written properly, the shtar is valid. Ella, rather, he says, Sha'az kishi yitzvenu b'de Isav Heter b'de Arkay Shalahem tzarach l'sham tchila ashtempel. Meaning, okay, right now, the governor is saying that right now, the guy bought all the chametz, and it's a religious observance thing, whatever you want to call it, a religious exemption, I don't know what you call it, right? It's just a religious event. But if the guy's going to actually go in and cash in on the deal, and want to go ahead and take my Cheerios, take my macaroni, take my schnapps, then the court will say, oh, you actually bought it, you have to pay sales tax. Meaning, at this point, the Chassam Sofer is saying, of course it's 100% sold, and it's valid, the sale, the Chassam Sofer is saying. The only thing when the governor is saying that, oh, just religious things, because at this point, until the guy actually takes it into his house and takes it into his rishus and gets 2,000% bias on it, then the government won't view it as a sale that needs sales tax. But if the guy would actually come in and take the bottle of whiskey, if he come and take the bread out of my freezer, then the government will say, of course, it was a valid sale and they have to pay sales tax, and therefore the Chassam Sofer says we don't have to be worried about the validity of the sale. And this is how most poskim accept this Chassam Sofer, and other poskim others who say similar ideas, that the sale is valid, even if you don't pay sales tax, and even if was another concern people said, another concern some poskim brought up, let's say I'm renting an apartment. If I own my house, so like we said before, I could do kinyan agav, right? The guy's going to own part of my cabinet, and with that, buying my cabinet, he'll get the chametz. But let's say I rent my apartment. Part of my contract says, when you rent an apartment, usually is that I'm not allowed to sublet, right? I can't rent my apartment to somebody else. So how can I go ahead now before Pesach and sublet my apartment to the guy? Legally, that's illegal. How can I do that? But based on this Chassam Sofer, we could also explain it. The person can explain it's also mutter, meaning the only are makbid, the baladira, the owner of your apartment, doesn't want you to sublet and have someone else live in that apartment without your permission. But if you're subletting it for a religious reason, even though it's valid, but as long as the person doesn't move in yet, then they won't have any claim against you that you have done anything illegal. That's the place can just take this to another step. Let's move on now to the minig of many people not to sell chametz, actual chametz, and they kind of take this minig of selling chametz and they kind of play around with it a little bit. And this is the Vilna Gaon is recorded in section number 6 of it, about on page 4, as having the following minig, and that's from the Sefer Ma'aser Rav and Kuf Pei. The Vilna Gaon writes there, Shloi Limkar, the Talmidim of Vilna Gaon bring down, Shloi Limkar Shum Dvar Chametz. The Vilna Gaon did not sell any chametz. Kiyem Mechira Adamas. He sold, but he didn't own any chametz. He just did a mechira, so to speak, to be yaitziv, just in case there was anything. Maybe he had some stocks, I don't know, something he might have had, some crumbs, some whatever it was. But he sold, but he didn't really own. He didn't really sell any chametz that was be'en, any real chametz. And he continues there in Kuf Pei Aleph.
What does that word mean? Olamis?
He just did a general sale, but didn't really have any bread that he was selling. But nonetheless, he arranged a sale in case he has something he doesn't know where it is.
Does it mean for perpetual, like forever?
Final.
A final sale, like.
He would sell it.
No, here's.
I'm sorry. Right, he would sell if he had anything. Thank you. If he had anything real, he would sell the guy the bread and let him keep it forever. Meaning, I have a loaf of bread. Do you want either you burnt it or you sell it to the guy? I'm sorry, thank you. Right, and then after Pesach, right, Achar Pesach, Ein Likach Min Hashuk, the Vilna Gaon would not buy from the marketplace. Mash Eifin Mikemach Shal Yisrael Mishamrim O Mishmarim V'Yayin Sarah V'Sheichas Yisrael Ki Amachira Gerua. So the Goyin was makbid after Pesach not to buy from any Jewish flour that was owned over Pesach by a guy who sold back to a Jew. Meaning you'd only buy from a real guy after Pesach. You wouldn't go to the frum store, so to speak, and buy because they sold their chametz. He was makbid not only not to sell his own chametz, but he was makbid not to buy from any yid who sold his chametz as well. This was the minig of the Vilna Gaon. And many Litvisha Olam, Yeshivisha Olam, they want to adapt this minig of Vilna Gaon to the best of their ability. However, Shlomo Zalman is quoted as personally being strict on this custom, but he would not tell his Talmidim they have to do it. He would have instructed as a Harah the Rabbim. And there's a story brought down that in the yeshiva, where he was Rosh Yeshiva in Kol Torah, they would sell the chametz. And one year after Pesach, the boys came back and they made a macha because they knew the Rosh Yeshiva of Shlomo Zalman himself wouldn't sell chametz gamur, and the yeshiva did sell chametz, so they felt it was it was a stira, and they said they're not going to eat that thing in Shabbos in yeshiva because the yeshiva's kitchen sold the chametz and they're makbid, like the Rosh Yeshiva's makbid. So the Rav Shlomo Zalman asked everybody from going home. Of course, everyone has to stay. He said it's a chumrah, and you cannot, mivat Torah, go home and miss yeshiva because of this chumrah. If you want to have your own personal haga in your own house, it's one thing. But he would not allow the bachrim to leave, and he allowed other people as well to sell their chametz. However, in the Sefer Nefesh Harav, which is the notes of Rav Hershel Schachter Shlita from a Soloveitchik, he brings down from a Soloveitchik of Boston was very makbid, and he also tells Talmidim that they should not sell chametz, or at least chametz gamur. Before Pesach, they should not rely on it. They should either destroy it or sell it like completely off to a guy, and it seems like the opinion of Rav Soloveitchik and his Talmidim is not to rely on the Mechira like the Vilna Gaon. However, Moshe Feinstein and the opinion of many other Paiskim, which is in the middle of the page over there, is Moshe's quote. This is from the notes of Shimon Eider. Yachal limkar l'nachri gam chametz be'en. You're allowed to sell the chametz, and he brings down the footnote there. You look at that. It says Amar Rabbeinu. Moshe used to say, if you don't sell chametz gomer to the guy, what are you selling? I mean, there are some people say you shouldn't sell chametz gomer, only sell things which aren't really chametz, and they would, people have all different types of minhagim when it comes to this thing. But Rabbi just said, I understand. If you're not selling chametz gomer to the guy, what are you selling him? It just seems to imply that he was pro the mechira, and that's many gedolei olam rely on this. The Aruch Shulchan brings down the minhag like this, and in Lakewood, I know where I have 4 Shaimer Shlita, the big Paisik in Yeshiva, he allows and tells people that you're allowed to sell chametz. So again, although there is a valid minhag, those are people who follow the opinion of the Vilna Gaon, not to sell chametz gomer, but the accepted practice of many is to yes sell chametz. And although the Vilna Gaon is recorded as not having bought things from a yid who sold his chametz after Pesach, today many Paisik say punkt fakir. Because you'd rather buy chametz that you know for sure was sold well than buy from a store which might come from a distributor of a yid who's not from, who didn't sell his chametz. Meaning, if I went ahead and I buy from, let's say, a Frum supermarket in Brooklyn, right? I don't know, you have all these Frum stores, pomegranates, right? They own by a Frum yid, right? Or what's it called? Moshe's Discount Supermarket, right? So I know that before chametz before Pesach he stocks up in all the chametz, and then he goes to the Rav, whoever gives the hechsher in the store, and he arranges sale of the chametz. So I know for sure that this was sold properly, like all the kinyanim that were done, and this chametz is sold, and I can eat it after Pesach. If I go to my regular ShopRite, or not ShopRite's not a good example, another big chain supermarket, Target, who might get to, who's owned by a guy, but some of the distributors who distribute food to Target are owned by Jews, who are not yet religious, so they maybe didn't sell their chametz, so I'm running into a bigger problem. So just consult your local Orthodox rabbi, what's better practice Nagea halacha l'maisa today, because again, even if you think you're buying from a Goyish supermarket, you might be getting it. There might be a Jewish middleman over there who didn't sell his chametz, so it might be a maila to buy from a person who dafka did sell his chametz. Okay, there's an interesting Chassidish Shemaisa I want to do end with before we get back to the original question, and that's from the Sefer Shari Hamayadim, which is from the writings of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe. He brings down that his father-in-law told him, that's the Rebbe Rayatz, that his father, the Marshab, Reb Shalom Ber, when he was a young child, the first time he went to Cheder, the Tzemach Tzedek was still alive. His grandfather, I think, right? His grandfather was still alive, and his grandfather gave him, when he went to Cheder, some candies and told him, like the Malachim are throwing sweets on you from Shemayim, and I'm giving you this. It's your first time learning Torah. It should be zis, it should be sweet. All different minhagim. You have my upshare, and you take a kid to learn for the first time, and give him all types of candies. And the kid was so excited he got these candies from his grandfather, Tzemach Tzedek, such a tzaddik. He saved them. He wasn't going to eat them. You get a shirayim from the Rebbe, right? What are you going to save it? You want to treasure it, right? Right before Pesach, the Tzemach Tzedek calls him over, the Rebbe calls him over and says, my dear Einikel, did you eat the candies yet? The kid says, no. He says, you got to eat them before Pesach. That's the story. Ad kan Maisa. Right? Now, what's the shayla? So that the Rebbe gave a whole shmooze on this Maisa, all the halachas learned from this Maisa. The question was, why didn't he tell his Einikel to sell them? Because the minhag in the Bible says you do sell chametz. They don't have this minhag of the Vilna Gaon not to sell chametz, so why didn't he tell him to sell them? So there's all different sheets back and forth. Bottom line, the way they explain the Maisa, the reason why I told him not to sell it and I should eat it is because it would be a bizayin to sell something that the Rebbe gave you to a guy. How can you sell something which the Rebbe gave it to a guy? And if you sell it to a guy and you get it back afterwards, it loses its kedusha from the Rebbe. The whole point of shirayim that the Rebbe gave it to you. If a guy gets it, is matame, it's in the middle. So you can't sell it to a guy. You got to eat it before Pesach. So if you have any shirayim in your house, make sure you don't sell it to a guy, and you give it. You got to eat it before Pesach. Yeah, let's. Well, give it to his father. Okay, right. Okay, but in this case, we'll say the father owns it. Okay. The original Shiur we start. What do we start with? The Shaila Meshi was asked the Shaila about, right? The guy had $1 million worth of schnapps, right? And he sells it to the guy before Pesach. He drops that on Chol Hamoed. The 2 sons are now fighting. The Bachar says, I want Pi Shnayim. And the second son says, you can't get Pi Shnayim, you can't get double, because it's Roi, it's only coming afterwards, and you didn't own it during Pesach. So Shalom Meshiv says, seemingly, at first glance, he didn't come to the Shiur, he didn't need to, but if he knew all these sources by himself. The Mechiras Chal. If you hold the Mechiras Chal, and all the Paiskim are agreeing the Mechiras value, they're all the Kinyanim, Mechiras Chal, it should be that the Bachar loses. Here's the catch. Here's the $1 million catch. There's a Magen Avram and a Taz that say that even if it's not spoken out, the Taz explains, the guy has no right to sell the chametz to any other yid after Pesach except the yid that sold it to him first. Meaning like this: I sell Mr. Akum my schnapps before Pesach. I have a friend who really wants my schnapps, so he's going to wait Matzah Pesach by the door of the guy. The second Pesach is over, knock on the door and say, "You have all that schnapps? Quick, I'll give you $1.5 million." So he'll undercut me and buy back from the guy before I have a chance to do it. So the Pais can say, the Taz learns, you can't do that. If the guy decides not to keep the chametz, the guy wants to keep the chametz, like we said, of course it's up to him. He can keep it and live happily ever after, pay it off, and he can enjoy it. But if he decides, for whatever reason, he wants to sell it back to the yid, then the yid who sold him is muchzik, has the right, doesn't own the chametz, because we don't want the yid to own the chametz, but the guy owns the chametz completely, but he has the legal right, I'm sure there's some fancy term for it, to have first dibs back to get that chametz back. And since he's muchzik to get the chametz back, he has still some shaykhs to it, not in the sense that he owns it. Again, he doesn't own the chametz, but he has some level of a connection to it. So says Shalom Meshav, he has a right to it, that perhaps you can say that will be enough for the Bechor to get Pishnayim, and therefore he wanted a paskin that the Bechor in such a case would get Pishnayim because he's a muchzik, the father was a muchzik to be the first one to get it back after Pesach, and no other yid could have bought it.
That's not Roy?
That's not Roy, he has a right to that.
Yeah,
You have to go through Jew, but
the traditional, you have a loan that it's Ra'ui, and you're obviously muchzak.
I mean, like what? By what case? By different...
You have a loan, right? And you're waiting for the loan to go. Isn't that
come back? Well, yeah, because I don't know...
I mean, you can't be more muchzak than that.
Well, okay, but I think, if I remember correctly, I think the difference over there is going to be, is that it's not a question of someone else, it's not that someone else can't get it back. We don't know if it's going to, meaning here, okay, I got to think about it. I think he speaks about that. But let me just answer one more point before we stop. Rabbi Yashiv, though, was hesitant to rely on this Pesach L'maisa. Hopefully it's Shilas Shemri L'maisa. But Rabbi Yashiv said that this would go back into the category where many Poskim were upset with the Mechira in general of Harama. Even though we accept the Mechira and we allow it to be done, and we promote everyone to do the Mechira to make sure that in case they own any Chametz, even if they don't think they own it, they should sell the Chametz, because you never know what you might have that you want to make sure is sold. But Rabbi Yashiv said if we would give the Bechar Pishnayim, it would look very fishy, and it would look like the sale was never valid. Therefore, he would say that the Bechar should not get it. There's more rayas as well to that, but that's the be machlokes. But again, according to Shalom Meshav, the original case, he paskin that it would be allowed for the Bechar to get Pishnayim. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll get back to Mechiras.
Okay, sure. We have all these 6 different kinyanim and everything, and